Hi, everyone. I'm Lindsay, and I'm here today with Michelle McKinney, who's teaching at the Gaian Congress this January, and we're so excited to have her back. She's been a shamanic practitioner for many, many years and has taught at several of our events in the past, both in-person Fairy Congress and the online Gaian Congress. And we're very excited about her topic this year, which is about connecting with the nature spirits of our ancestral lands, which just feels like so potent and important for healing for us all. And can you say maybe a little bit about how this topic came to you or how you came to this topic?
Sure, I'd love to. And I just want to say thank you for having this preview, and I'm really excited to participate in the Congress again. So, how far back in the Wayback Machine do I go? I would say, well, I think one of the things I really noticed with people, so I do shamanic work, but I've also facilitated constellations for years. And in several of the constellations, the spirit of the land came up for people really strongly. And one time I actually facilitated at two different times in a workshop for sisters, but each were different. And the kind of the same constellation came up where we had to go back to the spirit of Ireland. And that really opened things up. And there was a lot about not just the ancestors, but the spirit of the country, the spirit of the land that still had that yearning to connect with her people. And I experienced that a yearning to connect to my ancestral lands when I found out that I had Swedish ancestry, and I didn't know that. Somehow my mom never told me that her dad's family came from Sweden and Norway. And I just had this feeling like I had a fish hook in my chest that was like pulling me there. And I just couldn't get over that until someone facilitated a constellation for me where I got to meet the spirit of Sweden, of my ancestral home. And there's something about acknowledging where we're from and the spirit of the place and letting them know that they still live, that they live in us, that we come from that land. And then, I found out more about that side of my family, and they were miners and they were farmers, and those were the main things that they were. And that was also really interesting because I realized that not too far back in our ancestry, our ancestors were people of the land. And there's so many stories, not just from Scotland and Ireland about the Fae, but really everywhere, or every country in the world, including our own. In the US, there's a book, a collection of stories about the fairy folk that was written, I think, as someone's PhD thesis. And there's a copy at the Suzala Library, which I'm thinking of. I graduated from there, so I'm actually thinking of becoming an official alumni so I can go read that book in the library. But there are lots of stories of them, they're here and there, and they find you if you're curious. That's the other cool thing about working with the Fae and the nature spirits. It's kind of like the ancestors. If you have a curiosity and a question, you'll probably find the answer eventually. Like, they're listening, I think.
Right.
Yeah, so it kind of came from my own experience in having a really profound experience with that. And then once we did that constellation, I felt released from that pull, but I felt this, I don't know, I felt stronger in my own shamanic practice. I felt stronger. I just felt stronger. I felt this kind of belonging that I hadn't felt before.
And so many people are looking for that. I hear that all the time. Like,
Mhm.
oh, I don't feel like I belong anywhere. And yeah, and I don't know. What I've come to feel for myself is, yeah, that belonging, it has to come on a spiritual or internal level, because it's really hard to just create it on the outside.
It absolutely is. Yeah, there's a sense of belonging. There was something else I was going to say about that. I think, I think we like in general have a hard time with our ancestors. Like a lot of people don't know the stories, or their whole families are messed up and there can't be a good ancestor in there. But there are, if you go way back, there's always, we have such a variety of ancestors, and so there is something about who were the ones who worked with the land, who worked with the nature spirits, who would go looking for fairies. I have a friend whose grandmother used to take her looking for potatoes in upstate New York, I think it was. I might have that wrong, but I think it was upstate New York. But they were really looking for fairies.
Oh, sweet.
And so she had some of those old ways from Italy that she was showing her granddaughter. And it's very interesting, but when I was starting to teach about nature spirits, I was talking about trees, and it was very interesting that everybody had a story with a tree, a special tree. And when they connected with the guardian tree spirit, that was a more powerful connection even than connecting with their power animals. So there really is something about working with the spirits of nature, whether it's the fae or plant spirits or tree spirits. And I think that there's really something so rooted if we can connect with the nature spirits of our ancestral lands, and maybe it will be easier to make friends with our ancestors or feel more connected.
That's what I'm getting, is that, because yeah, I have a hard time connecting with my ancestors. It feels very vague. But I think connecting with the nature spirits of my ancestral lands will create an opening. It's kind of like, yeah, working my way in.
Because
Yeah.
that's your comfort zone,
Yep.
you
Yep.
know,
Exactly.
for sure.
All
And I
right.
think it's a lot of people's, there's a lot of people who that place where they connect to spirit is not church or
Mhm.
a formal kind of religion, but nature's kind of like that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. For many of us.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So where we go for solace, for nourishment. Yeah. For me, for company. It's like,
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Not feeling so alone or
yeah.
isolated, right?
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
went on a little hike with my nephew off the middle fork of the Snoqualmie, and we got to this big, all these trees. They were really tall trees, and he was like, "Whoa, this is like a cathedral." Like he just like you could tell it just filled him up, and I was like tickled that I got to experience that with my nephew, and he's the one who noticed it. And
Yeah. Yeah.
have to
That's
say
great.
anything. So
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time,
you're
and we look
welcome.
forward to seeing everyone at the Gaian Congress, January 19 through 21. And go to gaiancongress.org for
Great.
more information.
Thanks.